welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're talking about the one, the only Dalton Knecht. We're going to talk about whether I think Dalton can be an immediate benefit for the Lakers this year, and in particular, why that's important from Dalton's perspective compared to maybe the other players in the draft. So the reason it matters more for Dalton right now is because, frankly, he's just a little bit older than the rest of the draftees. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing he's the single oldest out of all of them, and that's because I believe he spent 5 years in college, went to JUCO, and so he's already 23 years old. And while 23 is not like old by any stretch, it's definitely older than some of these kids that are like 19 and 20. Like that's another 3 or 4 years of development that he's already had essentially. And so the four categories we're going to break this up into are going to go from categories I think are most important to have and then essentially work their way up to bonus. And this is a really good sign if he has this kind of thing. So the first one that I think is unbelievably important is his ability to shoot. So we know that he shot well in college, he shot well in high school, 35% in both of those examples. And so the fact that the Lakers are running sets for him is a great show that they understand his value, and he's also willing to shoot in a longer three-point range and longer defenders as well. The reason shooting is the most important category for me is simply because whether he has the ball or not, if he's going to be on the court with LeBron or AD, he needs to be able to make sure that he creates space for them. One of the Lakers' big issues last year was that defenders sagged off of their non-shooters aggressively. Because defenders were able to sag off of, it made it so much easier for them to essentially stop LeBron and stop AD from being efficient. And so if they can punish help, like 33 coming off right here, if Dalton can hit this kind of three, I think it bodes really well for him meshing with AD and LeBron. And so again, as we see this ball coming downhill, Bronny's going to, or no, 14 is going to hand it off to Bronny, slightly drive. Okay, 14 is going to be essentially the roller right here, slight opening. And so this defender needs to help down. And so what happens if you have this kind of space, you have a closeout that's a little bit long. Okay, this is even like, I mean, there's going to be a hand up here and he doesn't have that much space to work with, but he calmly sits back, catches it and fires and hits a great shot. And then finally, the thing I talk about is shooting is not so much as actually hitting the three. It's making people believe that you're going to hit the three. And so that's the biggest impact here is, do the defenders believe that you're going to shoot this ball? Okay, so as Dalton comes up here a little bit, 33 is going to cheat slightly, looks to get in the passing lane and or worry about his shooting right here. And so Dalton's like, okay, no worries, I'll just back cut. And so this, I think, is the ultimate exemplary that you can be a good shooter is if you can cut off of it. All right, so I do believe he's going to be a good shooter. Example number 2 is which there wasn't that many examples in this game, but we saw pretty good evidence at Tennessee, and that's in transition. Okay, so can Dalton be effective in transition if you get him a slight mismatch or somebody doesn't cover ground effectively? And I believe the answer to that one is yes as well. He's never going to be like a LeBron, like where he's just unbelievable, or Giannis, something like that. But I think he can capitalize on mismatches where if you get a step behind him, he has a good enough control of his body and he can use it to create advantage and finish very well around the rim. All right, so then we get into our third category, and this is where it's a slight change. And this is where can Dalton essentially work to create for himself, for the benefit of the team, whether he can be the initial creator. Okay, so we can see a ball screen right here, and he gets into the middle here, and he shot this shot a lot at Tennessee, and he shot it pretty well. I'm not the hugest fan of it, just as a philosophical point of view. However, maybe that might be the kind of thing where early in the shot clock I'm against it and late in the shot clock I'm okay with it. But the bigger idea is whether he can simply create to give his team more advantages using that pick and roll. So the fact that he was willing to do it earlier shows good sign, but if they can essentially go to him where he's specifically the one involved creating it. So right here we can see that he's coming off the ball screen or the dribble handoff, okay? And he gets attention. So I really like the fact that this is partially because of his shooting. I'm sure they need to be a little bit closer to him, but regardless, he's got to be able to make this pass if he wants to be the fourth go-to, the third go-to for the Lakers. Okay, so he gets both defenders with him right here, and who's the person open? The roller right here. Simple pass. Okay, it doesn't need to be anything complicated. It needs to make sure it doesn't get deflected, doesn't get stolen, both of which are accomplished. Okay, so he gave it to 14, and 14 correctly made the right read. And so ideally, again, this is why I think shooting is the most important, because this, like, if this is a good shooter, then that's a great look 40% look at a three-pointer, but it's not a good shooter, so it's not. And so him creating this little bit of offensive opportunity for the Lakers, I think also bodes really well for him on potentially this year's Lakers. And then, frankly, the thing that I wanted to see simply most of all, and that was whether in any situation, if he can essentially beat a defender one on one. Because, like, that is the biggest indicator of whether he'll be able to essentially create offense in the league or not. Okay, so if he's able to essentially go at eight, who's frankly going to be a little slower than them, if he's able to go at eight, I think that bodes really, really well. And so there's a couple things I really like on this drive, which I'll go over in a second, but he does a great job getting to the rim. So the three things I'd say I like really well is, first off, he's going to get caught in the original where he's going to run into the body of eight, and he doesn't like panic and move the ball. He knows he has an advantage and he resets. Two is this little off balance by eight right here is caused because Dalton slightly looks at the rim and fakes like he's going to maybe go up for a shot. That makes eight just slightly react. You can see just a little shimmer right there, and that gives him just a little step of room, and that's all it is at the highest level, is you just gotta have a little bit of space, a little bit of momentum, and that creates an advantage. And then three is he's going to be met at the rim by this defender right here, and while like this obviously isn't a rim protector by any stretch, having the awareness and the ability to finish through contact and above hands is a great, great sign. And so while he obviously finished or drove very, very well at Tennessee, it was always going to be somewhat of a question of whether his physicality is going to translate to the NBA, where players are bigger, better, more athletic. And I think this shows that at least to a certain extent it will. Okay, again, he's got essentially a little bit of an advantage going downhill. He's going to attack this post player right here. And so I love this. Like, you can't think ever that you're going to go around them. You got to think if you get into the paint that you're going to go through them. You got to have confidence that you're going to have athletic ability and physicality to go through them. And I love that finish right there. Maybe ideally finish with the left hand here instead of the right hand, but overall I love that attacking mindset for sure. In summary, in the four categories that I think Dalton has to be good at to have a real contributing role for the Lakers, most important is shooting. I think he's going to be good on shooting. I really think he's going to be effective on shooting. Two is transition. I think transition, he's going to be good enough. He is athletic. He has good control of his body. I think he's going to be effective. Three is when he's creating the pick and roll, I think he'll be fine. He probably won't be elite, but I think he'll be efficient enough to be an effective playmaker later on, like as the third option, fourth option, something like that. And then four, whether he can beat someone one-on-one, I don't think he's going to beat the really good defenders one-on-one, but if he can take advantage of like the slightly slower defenders, the slightly smaller defenders, I think that bodes really well and makes it so defenders can't sag off them, can't have a mismatch, and I think it puts a lot of strain on the defense and could be a really, really good complement for LeBron, AD, and the Lakers potentially this year. If you enjoyed this, I made a video last week about Tyler Kolek. Feel free to check that out right here. Feel free to like and subscribe. But most importantly, have a blessed rest of your day.